Hello everyone, I'm back today with the second topic of our 10-day C programming course. Please do make sure to watch the previous videos and to attend the test if you haven't. Now let's see today's topic, which is Introduction to C programming. C is one of the many programming languages that is being used these days. So for example, there is Java, Python, C++, Ruby, Go. There are a lot of them. And now let's concentrate on C. So what is C programming? C programming is a general purpose, procedural, imperative computer programming language. Let me break it down for you. General purpose is we can use it generally or for something that we use daily. Like for example, you guys all must have had maths classes, so definitely you can write a program to find the sum of two numbers, three numbers, four numbers, n number of numbers. You can write a code, or you can write a program to find the product of two numbers, or you can even write a program for the billing system that you have in a shop or a mall or anything. That is what is meant by general purpose. Now procedural is, let's consider an example of a calculator. A calculator can perform many functionalities. So if you sit down to write the code for all the if you decide to create a calculator, and if you sit down to write the code for all the functionalities in a calculator, it is going to be really hard because there is a lot of functionalities, and sitting and writing all on your own, it's going to be really difficult. So instead what you can do is you can divide the functionalities, or what a calculator can do, what are the different things that a calculator can do: finding the sum, finding the square root, finding the cube root. There are a lot of them. You can just divide them into each parts, and you can ask your friends to help you out with writing the code for that particular part. So if you and your friends write code for n parts, that is n functionalities of the calculator, at last you can combine all of it and you can form a calculator, or you have written, or you will get the solution for the code of the calculator as a whole. This is what is meant by procedural. Now imperative, it's just important computer programming language. It is said to be an important computer programming language because it is based on the C programming language. There are a lot of other programming languages that was developed after C. So that is the reason why it's said to be an imperative or important programming language. Now it was developed in 1972 by Dennis M. Ritchie at the Bell Telephone Laboratories to develop the Unix operating system. Just like the other operating system, there is this Unix operating system which had to be written in C, which had to be written using a programming language. So that mainly for that purpose, C programming language was developed. And in Unix operating system, they're not only using C programming, they're using assembly language also. Assembly language, it uses abbreviations. I mentioned that in the previous video. Assembly language, it uses abbreviations. And then the next point is, it is the most widely used computer language. It keeps fluctuating because every day, not every day, but every now and then a new programming language is being found. So even though more programming languages are being found, there are a lot of people who still stick on to C programming instead of using some other programming languages. And C programming is considered, this is why C programming is considered very important. C programming is considered as the base for other programming languages. That is why it is also known as mother language. Now the next topic is, why C? Why should we use C? And first point is, it was previously mentioned, C is a mother language. That is because it is being used as the base language, or it is being used as a base for other programming languages. And the next one is the core. It provides core concept like the array, strings, functions, file handling, etc. that are being used in many languages like C, C++, Java, etc. Now the next point is, C is a system programming language. C is said to be a system programming language because it can be used to create system software. Now system software is a software that acts as a platform for other softwares to execute. Now for example, operating system is a system software because using the operating system we can install a lot of other applications, and using those applications we can perform various actions. Now here, system programming language is used to create a system software. The C language is a system programming language because it can be used to do low level programming. It is generally used to create hardware devices, OS, drivers, kernels, etc. For example, Linux kernel is written in C. So kernel is actually an interface between the software and the hardware. So in Linux, the kernel is written in C. And please note that C cannot be used for internet programming like Java, .NET, PHP, etc. So mostly PHP is used for server-side scripting, and Java, it's mostly written for Java can be used as programs also, but here C is not used for internet programming. Please make note of that. Now C is a procedural language. As I said in the beginning, a procedure is known as a function, method, routine or subroutine. That is the calculate example. The functionalities can be divided into different parts or methods, and then you're combining it together. So here in C, that is possible. That is, you can divide a whole program into different parts, and then you can, after writing the code for each part separately, you can combine it together and make it. So a procedural language specifies a series of steps for the program to solve a problem. Procedural language breaks the program into functions, data structures, etc. And C is a procedural language. In C, variables and function prototypes must be declared before being used. That we'll discuss more about it once we move to the programming part. We'll be starting the programming part from tomorrow onwards. So now let's focus more on these topics and then move on to the programming part. C is a structured programming language. In what structured programming language means is there is a particular way or method on how a program should be. Like in C, how it is like in the beginning you get the input from the user, you process all the information, or you process all the data that you have in your computer, or you process the data that the user has given to the computer, and then you give out the output, or you store it in a file. That is what is meant by structured programming language. And also it is to be noted that structured programming language is a subset of procedural language. Structure means to break a program into parts or blocks. Now C is a mid-level programming language. So it's said to be a mid-level programming language because it has features of low-level programming language as well as high-level programming language. Now C language is converted to assembly code. It supports pointer arithmetic, but it is mission independent. Now being mission independent means the same program can be executed from different computers, and it would still give the same output. That is meant by machine independent. And being machine independent is a feature of high level, but C program is converted into assembly code. Assembly code means the C code is actually high level language. The C code is converted into assembly code, and from there it's again converted into machine code. Now it supports pointer arithmetic. After it is being converted to assembly code, it supports pointer arithmetic. Supporting pointer arithmetic, it's actually a feature of the low level language. Now a low level language is specific to one machine. That is, it is machine dependent. Since it is machine dependent, it is fast to run, but it's not very easy to understand. But a high level language is not machine dependent. The same can be executed in different computers, and also it is also easy to understand. That is the main difference between low level language and high level language. Example of low level language would be machine language, which is made out of zeros and ones, and high level language would be the normal programming languages which we are using these days, C, C++, Java and everything. But still C has the features of both low level language and high level language, so therefore it is also referred to as mid level programming language. Now let's see the list of programming languages that were developed before C. So there is ALGOL, VCPL, B, traditional C, K&R-C, ANSI C, ANSI ISO C, C99. These were the different languages developed before C. It's not necessary to memorize all of them, but if you are intrigued, or if you feel like you should learn more about it, you can just take note of it, or I'll just in the description I'll leave the link to this document and you can go through it. Now let's see the advantages of learning C programming. Now structured language. The first advantage is it's a structured language. That is, there is a particular there is a there is already a particular way in which the program should be. So here the first step would be ask the user for text input. I mean, it's not necessary that all the programs should have an input and an output. It's totally up to the problem that you're writing the code for. So here they have, in case if there is an input, just ask user for text input. Then you take the input from the user. After taking the input from the user, you process the information that is being given by the user. After processing the information, you can either, if you want to print the results, you can print the results, or else you can just store it somewhere. Now here there is an example. There is the main program, then enter, edit, sort, print. Then from edit again there is read, modify, save. From modify there is delete, update. Now next it is easy to learn. C is said to be easy to learn because it's not like zeros and ones. It's not like machine language, because here the codes or the words or the way in which we are writing the code, it's actually based on English words. So if you have to print something, you're using the keyword printf, and if you have to take input from the user, you're using scanf. So it's easy to remember such kind of words. So that's why it is said to be easy to learn. Now it produces efficient programs. That is, if you have written the program in the correct way, then definitely you're getting the right program, and that makes it efficient. Now it can be compiled on a variety of computer programs. Now this is the advantage of being a high level language. The same program can be executed in different systems. Now disadvantages of C programming. C programming does not provide object oriented programming concept. Now this is one thing why there are people who does not do programming in C, because C does not provide object-oriented programming concept. In C, what we do is a whole program is being divided into modules, that is functions. Remember the calculator example I told you? There we are dividing into different parts and then we are combining it together. But the problem there is the security of the data might be compromised. So in object-oriented programming concept, everything is considered as an object. Like once we go more in depth in it, you'll understand. So right now I'm just giving you a brief. I'm just giving you a little bit of explanation so that you don't go asking what it is. It's object oriented here, but it is procedure oriented. That is, in C we divide the whole program into modules or functions, but in object oriented programming, that is in C++. Actually in C++ object oriented programming concepts are available. In C++ what happens is there is everything can be put into objects. Now there are no concept of namespace in C. We will be checking out more of that in the coming sessions. So the C does not provide binding or wrapping up of a data into single unit. This is what I meant. Like the data security might be compromised, and C does not provide constructor or destructor. We'll see more about it in the coming sessions. Now let's move on to the applications of C programming. Operating systems. We saw Unix was the operating system, and Linux kernel is also written using C programming, and Unix operating system was developed using C programming. Now language compilers is for C, the compiler is something which performs the action of translation. That is, the source code written in C should be converted to object code so that the machine understands our instruction and it performs the actions accordingly. So for each language it will change, because the code I write in C will not be the code I write in Java. There is going to be differences because the language I wrote the code in is different. It's same like writing the same sentence in English as well as in Hindi. The language is going to be same, but what it means is the language is going to be different, but what it means is going to be the same. So here language compiler for C, you have compilers alone for that. For Java you have compilers alone for that. In the same way, for each language accordingly it will have translators. So C is used to write programs for such language compilers. And then there is assemblers. Assembler is used to convert an assembly language to machine language. Assembly language consists of abbreviations. So such kind of the codes written in assembly language should be converted to machine language, and for that the translator used is assembler. Now the text editor normal that we'll have normal text editors like the one which we use most commonly is Notepad. Such text editors can be written using C program. Now print spoolers, what that means is once you give the print option, all you see is the document was in your screen and you get it on the paper. But here something what happens is the data from the the whole image from the computer should be transferred to the printer so that it can print it to the paper. Now that is what is done by print spoolers. Print spoolers, it takes the data from the computer so that it can print it to the paper. Now network driver programs can also be done using C programming, modern programs. Definitely. Then database, the collection of database. This is the explanation for it. Database is a collection of interrelated data. Or definitely, there's going to be, in colleges we have database, in schools you have databases where your information, your father's name, your mother's name, all your mark details and everything is stored there. It's called database. Such databases can also be programmed using C. Now next we'll move on to IDE for C. This is going to be the step towards C. After this topic we'll be seeing about setting up C environment. So we're coming closer to the programming part. So let's see what this is. IDE for C, an integrated development environment, is a software suite that consolidates basic tools required to test and write software. So IDE is the place where you write the software, where you compile the software, where you execute where you write the code, where you compile the code, and where you execute the code. Now writing code is fine. Once you start learning C programming, you can write the code on your own. Like we'll start with printing something. So let's take an example of finding the sum of two numbers. Once you write the code, what you have to do is you have to check whether there is errors in the program. Now that is where you compile the code. Now after compiling the code, if there is an error, what the compiler actually does is it converts the source code into object code. What happens here, once you have written the program and once you started compiling it, the compiler starts translating the code into machine language. So once there is an error, the compiler stops there and it gives you a message, an error has occurred in this line, please check. So once there is no error in the program, the compiler translates all of the code into machine language. So that is the first step. The compiler converts the code into machine language, and after the code has been converted to object code, the next phase is executing the program. That is, you have to see what would happen if you run the program. This might seem a little bit difficult for you to grasp now, but once we move on to the programming part, trust me, it's going to be easy. So once you execute the program, you'll get the output. It will start, if it's the program to find the sum of two numbers, in the screen it will be displayed, enter two numbers, and then the user will enter two numbers and it will print the sum of these two numbers are this. So this is what happens. Now IDE is the place for writing and testing the code. So here there are developers use numerous tools throughout software code creation, building and testing. Development tools often include text editors, code libraries, compilers, and test platforms. So it includes a lot of code libraries will also be used. We'll definitely check in the next session. So now I've listed down a few of the text editors. These are, as you can see, we'll be using Turbo C++ as the IDE. And now next is the character set. Now the next topic is character set. Now for each language there is going to be a set of alphabets, or there is going to be a set of punctuations and everything that is being used, that will be used to speak as well as write. In the same way, in C also we have a set of character set, that is valid characters in a language, which is the fundamental units of the language, is collectively known as character set. So here we are going to be using alphabets, that is both capital alphabets and the small letter alphabets, and then there's going to be digits, that is 0 to 9. Using 0 to 9 you can form any number, and there is going to be special characters. Special characters is plus, minus, star, slash. There are a lot of it, and all of it is going to be used when needed. And there is white spaces, space bar, horizontal tab, cartridge return. Cartridge return is enter, new line, form field. All of these are white spaces. And the next session will be setting up environment for C. Hope the above discussed topics were fine, and if you have any doubts, please feel free to ask me, or just leave it in the comments so that I can clear it out for you later. So the next topic is setting up environment for C. So I provided a link here in this document, otherwise I'll leave another link in the description. You can click on the same and download Turbo C++. If you already have installed Turbo C++, very good. For others, please make sure that you go through this to install it properly. Now I clicked on the link, you'll be taken to another page. So here download Turbo C++ for Windows 7, 8, 8.1 and Windows 10 32-64-bit with full Windows screen mode and many other extra features. So here the first step given is how to install Turbo C++, and right below that there is this link, download Turbo C++ 3.2 from here. Just click on it and you'll be taken here. Yeah, it's already being downloaded, just wait for it to download. Once that is completed, what you have to do is extract downloaded Turbo C++ 3.2 zip file. Go to the file location. Here, just click on it. After going to the file location, what you have to do is right click on it, and there is going to be extract all. Extract. Since it is a zip file, you have to extract the you'll have to wait a bit because you have to extract all the files from it. Now once that is done, let's find the folder. Here it is, Turbo C.3.2, and here there is the setup. Click on it. After clicking on it, you will get this. Now what you have to do is you have to click on setup.exe. Let's find it out. Yeah, this one. Now after clicking on it, this window will appear. Just click on next and click on I accept the terms in the license agreement. Then go click on next, install. That's all, and it will take a few minutes. After that, it will get installed. Now you can either launch the program or you can just finish it normally. I'm using launch the program. Now let's talk about some apart from all of that, let's learn a little bit more. The first point is procedural programming. Now in procedural programming can be defined as a programming model which is derived from structured programming. So what it means is, first structured programming was found, and from that we have developed procedural programming based upon the concept of calling procedures. Procedures, also known as routines, subroutines or function, simply consist of a series of computational steps to be carried out. During a program's execution, any given procedure might be called at any point, include any other procedures itself. So to understand this properly, let's take the example of the calculator. So in a calculator, when we have to find the sum of two numbers, we don't have to go check with cube root, or we don't have to go check the code of the multiplication or anything. We just have to directly go to the code of addition and then find the sum of the two numbers. This is possible because the whole program was divided into different parts. That is what procedural programming means. Now, some of the examples or the languages which use procedural programming is Fortran, Algol, COBOL, BASIC, Pascal, and C. These are just a few examples. Next, we'll see the main difference between procedure-oriented programming and object-oriented programming. So, in procedure-oriented programming, as I said before, the whole program is divided into small parts, which is called functions. But in object-oriented programming, it's divided into objects. Let me give you an example of object-oriented programming. Let us take, so in the object-oriented programming, there is going to be the concept of class and objects. So, for example, for a simple, like when coming to real-time example, the example of class would be a vehicle. Objects would be the different types of vehicle, like there can be three-wheelers, there can be two-wheelers, there can be four-wheelers. Those all are objects. So class is most like a blueprint, or based upon the properties of the class, the objects can be created. So this is just a basic explanation. We'll be going deep into it later. So this is what object-oriented programming means. The advantages of object-oriented programming is the data security is more when compared to procedure-oriented programming. Also, there are features like abstraction, data encapsulation, polymorphism, and all of it. So we'll be looking more forward to it. So we'll move on to the next point now. Procedural programming follows top-down approach. So top-down approaches, if you have watched the previous video, you will know that is I explained it using the concept of the house. First we'll draw the outline of the house, then we'll go into the other elements. But in object-oriented programming, we are starting from the bottom. First we'll fix the base of the problem, then we'll build up from it. And in procedure-oriented programming, there is no access specifier, but in object-oriented programming, there is access specifier. Access specifier is let's take an example. You have the keys to your own house, but your neighbors or your relatives won't have the keys to your house. So here you are restricting the access, or you are denying access of other people to the house. Only the person who has the key can get inside the house. In the same way, in procedure oriented programming, anybody can access the data, but in object oriented programming, they have this private public protected. There are some let's just take it as keys. So if anybody has the key, then only they can access that particular data. If they don't have the key, they cannot access the data. Then adding new function and new data is not easy. In functions, like in procedure-oriented programming, adding new function and new data is not easy, because you have to add in more data, and according to that, you have to bring out changes in the other. But here, object-oriented programming, everything is divided into objects. So therefore, when you're making out a change in the class, automatically the change will be brought out in the objects that were created using that particular class. And procedural programming does not have any proper way of hiding data, so it is less secure. Object oriented programming provides data hiding, so it is more secure. So these are the main differences between procedure oriented programming and object oriented programming. Now we'll say, what is a kernel? Kernel is an interface between a software and a hardware of the computer. So here kernel, it acts as it stays in between the software and the hardware of the computer, so that don't confuse it with the operating system. An operating system is an interface between the system and the user. So it allows the user to use the system properly. In the same way, kernel is the interface between the software and the hardware. The operating system is, it is given here properly. Please make note of it. Do not confuse both of these. They are totally different. Operating system is an interface between user and hardware of the computer. Monolithic kernels and microkernels. Single and multi-programming batch system, distributed operating system, real-time operating system. Now we'll see what is a JVM. A Java virtual machine is a virtual machine that enables a computer to run Java programs as well as computer programs written in other languages that are also compiled to Java bytecode. So Java virtual machine, it has to be present in a computer if we are going to write a code in Java and if we want to compile or execute that code in Java. So this what it does is it allows the computer to execute the Java code that has been converted to Java bytecode. Now we'll see what is a system software. System software is a software designed to provide a platform for other software. Examples of system software include operating systems like Mac OS, GNU Linux, and Microsoft Windows computation. So what this operating system does is we can install, like let's take an example. You have installed some OS in your device and you are installing other applications also, like you're installing other applications like game engines. Yeah, here there are given some other examples also. Once so it allows you to install other softwares or applications, and using that softwares or applications you can perform another action perfectly or as you wish it to be. Now next comes structured programming. As the word suggests, it can be defined as a programming approach in which the program is made as a single structure. It means that the code will execute the instruction by instruction one after the other. It doesn't support the possibility of jumping from one instruction to some other with the help of any statement like go to, etc. Therefore, the instruction in this approach will be executed in a serial and structured manner. The languages that support structured programming approaches are C, C++, Java, C#. Now what this means is, in structured programming what happens is, if you have written some set of codes, the code will be executed in the order you have written it. Also the another thing is statement like go to is not possible here. So what go to does is, if a go to occurs in any part of the program and like it's going to be like yeah, so a person comes to you and asking for how do you go to a particular place, you tell them the way and they directly go there. So here also that is what happens. Once the go to statement occurs, the control of the program or the control of the program is directly passed to the passed to that particular position. So this kind of, so it's like more like a jump statement, so that kind of statements is not possible here. That is what structured programming means. Now next something else that I would like to add is there are three types of like there are three translators: compilers, assemblers, and interpreters. Compilers, we know it converts the source code to, compilers are used with C, it converts the source code to object code. Now the main interpreter, what it does is it mimics the execution of the program. The main difference between the compiler and the interpreter is, the compiler, it takes the whole program and then converts it to machine language, but interpreter does not do that. It takes the program line by line and then executes it. And then we have the assembler. Assembler is used to convert assembly language to machine language. Now let's see another example of flowcharts and algorithm. Yeah, we discussed this yesterday. Algorithm is the step-by-step procedure to solve a problem, whereas flowchart is a pictorial representation of how to solve the problem or the steps in solving the problem. So we have taken an example here. The question is to find the sum of two numbers. So if you are asked to find the sum of two numbers, what would you do? The first step would be, you would get the two numbers. Let it be two numbers A and B. First you'll get the two numbers, then in your mind you'll find the sum of A plus B. You'll find the sum of the two numbers, and then after getting the answer, you'll just write it down on a paper, or you'll do what you want to do with the sum. So here what you're going to do is, since the problem is to find the sum of the two numbers, you will be given two numbers, and what you'll be required to do is you have to accept two numbers and you have to print the sum of the two numbers. As simple as that. So let's see what are the steps involved. There are total 6 steps. The first step is start. Second step is to accept the first number to find the sum. The third step is to accept the second number to find the sum. The fourth step is to find the sum of these two numbers, that is first number plus second number. Then the fifth step is to print the sum of the two numbers. Step 6, stop. Now let's see the flow chart. So first it is start. See here, you can see the start symbol. It's an oval shape, and then there is a flow line. After starting the program, execute this statement. So it is input number 1, number 2. In one input box itself, you can accept as many numbers as you want. It's totally up to you. You can accept numbers, you can accept string, you can accept character, because this is just a pictorial representation. This is flowchart, whereas this is algorithm. So here you can accept any n number of inputs from the user. It's totally up to you. So here they are accepting two numbers. Then here what they have done is they have found the sum of number 1 and number 2, and they're storing it in sum. So normally in mathematics you will put x equal to a plus b. The same thing here. Number 1 plus number 2, they are storing it in sum. After that, what they're doing is, see here, there is some this is data manipulation. Data manipulation is nothing but with the data you're bringing out some changes in the data. So number 1 and number 2 will be the input from the user. With that, you're changing the value in sum. So and after that, you're printing sum. Here using a parallelogram. Please note that for input and output, you're using a parallelogram, and to find the sum, that is to do any arithmetic operations or something like that, you're using a rectangular box. And after that, after printing sum, your program is finished. So you're going to end. Now see here in the algorithm, you can see that step 1, step 2, they're accepting first number. Step 3, they're accepting second number. It's not necessary that you have to write it separately. You can normally in one step itself, you can write accept first number and second number. It's totally up to you. So the algorithm, it doesn't have any see, the main definition is it's the step-by-step procedure to solve the problem. So how you write the algorithm is not important. What is important is the way you solve the problem. So here, as I said, you can write it together, and this step 4, step 5 also, you can just put it in the same line saying find the sum and then print the result. It's totally up to you to what to write. Here also, here I think it's going to be the same. Directly you can print, like instead of storing it in extra variable, you can directly print. You can remove this rectangular box and directly go to this and say print number 1 plus number 2, and that is also totally up to you. So let's see another example. Here there is greatest of two numbers. So this program is to find the max, which is the greatest number of the given two numbers. So let's use the same concept here. If you're given a problem to find the greatest of two numbers, like your friend is giving two numbers and saying find the two numbers, find the greatest among two numbers, you'll check if is the first number greater than the second number. Yes, if that is the condition, first number is the greatest number. Otherwise, if first number is not greater than second number, then definitely the second number is the greatest among both the numbers. So the same condition, there is going to be a little bit difference from what we have done from the previous algorithm and flowchart, because here there comes a condition thing. So definitely we are going to use the rhombus. So please make note of that. Now let's see the algorithm. See, first we start the program. Then to find the greatest of two numbers, definitely you have to get the input from the user. So reading A and B. See, they have done it that way. Here they accepted first number and second number in 2 steps. Here they are doing it in a single step. Next, in the third step, they are checking if first number is greater than second number, then print first number is the largest. Otherwise means B is greater than, second number is greater than first number. So if that is true, then second value is printed. After printing the value, we are stopping. So this is the flowchart. We are starting. After starting the program, we are accepting the input A and B. A and B will be the two numbers, out of which we will have to find the greatest number. So then here there is the condition box. This is what I meant. This is the condition box. Normally here in the previous thing what we had is we just had to find sum. I mean, there is no condition there. We can directly get two numbers, we can print the sum and we leave it. So there is no condition box required here. But here, since we are asked to find the greatest of two numbers, there should be a condition, because only if A is greater than B, A is the greatest number. So here, if A greater than B, see, you can note it, you can see it there, that there is a condition required. So in such problems you will have to use a rhombus and flowchart. So if A greater than B, you can even write it as if B greater than A. It's totally up to you. So if A greater than B, from here, from here it's going true. So in such condition boxes there will be two possibilities. Either the condition can be true, or the other one is the condition can be false. So here, true, false. It's not necessary that these lines has to come from these two sides. Either it can be from here or from here, from here or from here, or as shown in the figure. It's totally up to you. So here, if A is greater than B, if that is true, then the A value is printed. Here, instead of print, they are using the word display. In flowchart, it's just you have to understand what you have to do. So the words used, it's totally up to you. Because in the previous program, it was input A and B. Input A and B means accept input from a user, which is A and B. Here it is accept A and B, which also means the same. So it's totally up to you. Also, this parallelogram will let you know that it is for taking input. And here display A means this is parallelogram, so showing the output. So display A, you will get it. So here, if the condition is true, display the value of A. Otherwise, if B is greater than A, that is this A greater than B condition is false, then you have to print the value of B. Then after that, you're coming back to stop. So this is the flowchart for finding the greatest of two numbers. Hope you have understood everything till now. It would be better if you start working on a few problems, because once you know to write the algorithm and draw the flowcharts for the problem, it will be very much easier for you to write the code, so that you won't have to put in much stress when you have to write code. So I'll just give you a few questions, and if you are interested, you can work it on. Just if you don't get it, don't panic, it's totally fine. This is just the beginning. Go to Google and just try if you can't figure out the answers, go to Google and just Google it. Go to Google and check for the question and find the answers, and try to understand it, how they have done it, and based on that, try to do it on your own. So the question I'm giving you is to find the difference between two numbers. So let A and B the two. I'll give you a hint. First, you have to accept two numbers. You have to find the difference and you have to print the difference. This is what will be happening in the program, and you have to do the algorithm as well as the flowchart. You don't have to send it back to me, but if you have any sort of doubts, I'll be here to clear it out for you. Otherwise, if you would like to Google it, please do it that way. It's totally up to you. And so the first question is this is homework. It's totally, as I said, it's totally up to you to do it. If you are interested, please do it. Otherwise, you can just brush it up by watching this video again and again. First question is finding the difference of two numbers. So the second question I'm giving you is to accept a number, multiply it by 10, and then print the value. This will be the second question. The third question is would be to check if a person is eligible to vote or not. So what is the main condition to check if a person is eligible to vote or not? Whether the person is 18 or above. So using that, these are the three questions that you have to work out on, and if you are interested, you can work on more problems. You don't have to emphasize more on just these three. You can go check out for other problems and work out on those problems also. But if in case you are interested and if you'd like to check out these problems, please do find out the answers. And so what I've explained this here is just for if condition, that is once this is just for if conditions. There are looping condition also. Looping is when the same step has to be repeated for many times. that is I would like to reduce 2 from 10 for 2 times. So the first time I should reduce 2 from 10, so it becomes 8. Again from 8 I should reduce 2, it becomes 8 minus 2, it becomes 6. So the reducing 2 from that particular number is the same step. So what I can do is I can put it in a loop and I can tell to the computer, this step, do it for this many times. So there are looping conditions also, which we'll be checking out later in the same session, later in the coming sessions. So if you are interested, you may go through that also. So that's all for today's class. In case if you have any doubts or if you have any suggestions, please let me know. You can either leave it in the comments or you can just mail me or contact me. The details is given already. Hope you had fun, guys. Make sure to attend the test after this, and I've already left the link to the document, to the notes in the description. Please go through if you like to go through it. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.